Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead Daryl Dixon video. So I wanted to talk about Season 3 because Season 3 is, well, the trailer actually is out now. And yeah, I want to break down everything here shot for shot and get into what this trailer is. Because honestly, now that we have the news that Season 4 is going to be the final season, it really does make everything very exciting. Like, how is this all going to end? Because obviously they're setting up this story here, right? But they are going to be setting up the final season for how Daryl and Carol's story ends in Europe and how they eventually get back to America. And I do think that looking back to season 2 and seeing Laurent and Ash go back to the Commonwealth, it makes sense now in terms of some of the connections they could make to, Rick or the Commonwealth or anything else in season 3, and then some stuff they can get into in season 4 where they eventually do make it back, right? Because there's a lot of questions there, like how are they going to get back? And yeah, like I'm really curious about that because, like, obviously, I mean, I guess they could use a boat. We'll have to wait and see, or maybe they're rescued because Rick shows up there. Like, I don't know how they're going to do this, but obviously they're talking about doing other stories afterwards, or at least there's a hint at it, right? Like, there was sort of, they never said this was the end of Daryl and Carol. This was just sort of, the ending of their story in Europe, and then, afterwards we'll have to wait and see. And they kind of looked at Gimple and all that, so you know that there's something else planned, but it's just how do they build up to this? And this trailer here shows us how they're going to start doing that here. So yeah, before going further, make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all of my Walking Dead content like this, but let's actually get into this here. So this trailer begins with Daryl and Carol in London, and I will say I really do like the look overall, at least visually, because you can tell that they've actually changed a lot of this in terms of the color grading, right? Like, a lot of the teasers, and I've noticed this with like the previous seasons, with other shows as well, like with The Walking Dead, that like trailers or teasers that we get like before the show airs or like before the official trailer always look a little different. Like, you can tell it's not completely finished, or it's just like, you know what I mean? And then we get the official trailer, and then it's like they settle on like what it's gonna look like basically overall. And you can just tell that everything looks very, very polished. Like, all the zombies, or sorry, walkers in London here look absolutely incredible. And yeah, we meet Stephen Merchant's character. We've talked a lot about this scene before because we've seen this in previous teasers, but his character, it actually seems like, based off of the trailer here, he does say he's the only person left in London, and so it is really interesting when you think about the effects of the Walker apocalypse, I guess, on the whole world, like how different places were affected, right? Like in France, there's variant walkers and they're being created. There's some hints that the Walker origins might have started there. In Spain, we're going to talk about it, but it looks like there's going to be new type of walkers because Gimple actually talked about that. We've seen a lot of how things are in America, but it looks like for London, like, no one survived. Like, the apocalypse got rid of everyone. So it's interesting to look at it and be like, he really is the only person left there. And I do think he is likely going to die here in this very first episode, because we do actually see Daryl and Carol, and they're on this boat, and a storm seems to happen here. And so they're on their way to America here, it seems like, but I do think that, yeah, again, there's going to be this really crazy storm that happens, and I hope that the visuals are just absolutely incredible, and it looks like they wake up on the shores of Spain here, and so Daryl and Carol are a little bit confused, and they're looking around like, what happened, where are we? And then I think eventually they are going to find out that, okay, they are in Spain. Stephen Merchant's character, he's not here at all. I do think he's likely, like, they might look around, they'll find him as a walker or something like that, because he's not there later on. Like, he's not in the trailer later on. Actually, there's one shot where it cuts to him and it looks like he's sitting at the dinner table, but I'm like, no, that's definitely from something else, like earlier on. I think they were trying to trick us there, so I do think he's likely going to die, probably during the storm or something like that, which I think is, yeah, obviously, I guess, tragic for the character. Now, the visuals here are really incredible, and that's one of the things that I think this show is always going to have going for it. And, the fact that this is going to be 4 seasons only, it's really cool to look at the whole show now. Like, we don't know what the 4th season is going to be. Like, obviously, they're filming that right now. We'll see probably more of that, like, next year or something like that when it actually airs, when we get teasers and trailers and stuff for that. But the one thing about this show is that the visuals and just all the locations and stuff, like, they're shot in a very similar way. And, like, look at this. Like, I mean, you see Daryl, Carol, and some other characters there. It looks like they're actually traveling to someplace here in Spain. And so this is likely, I mean, this could be the 2nd episode or the 1st episode. Like, I feel like a lot of the 1st episode is going to be, I mean, honestly, it could be set up in a very similar way to the very 1st episode of season 1, where Daryl just wakes up and he's in France, and it's like, what's going on? Then eventually he ends up meeting all the nuns and stuff. And so I could see that happening here too. Like, I mean, first of all, they're going to be in London and there's going to be that whole story there, but they will be in Spain here, and then they'll meet all the characters, and there's going to be like this whole like, this is Spain or whatever type of cliffhanger, probably a hint at like the villain and stuff like that. And then, yeah, we'll have to wait for episode 2, right? Now, a lot of these shots just show off a lot of what this community is all about here, and it looks like what the story is this place here is constantly getting attacked by another group out there, and the group, I don't remember exactly what the name was, but it was like Prime, or just, it was something like that anyways. I'd have to go look it up again, but my point is that that group is the villain group that we're seeing a lot here. They're constantly attacking this group here, and so they need to defend themselves, and I think what's going to happen here is Daryl and Carol are going to go here, and they're going to see what's happening here to everyone, and I think it's going to, you know, I guess really affect them. Daryl mentions at one point in the trailer that we should just go, you know, and I do think that that is something that makes sense. Like, you can't always help everyone, right? Like, just because you're here, like, you're trying to get back home, like, you know what I mean? I think for Daryl, he's just like, we should just go back home. Like, we can't help every single person we come across, right? But Carol obviously is going to convince him to help this community out, and I think that that is what is going to happen here. And so I think that's where this is going to start overall. There is actually going to be like this royal movement here that's happening throughout, I guess, the season, and probably will build up to being like the bigger villains for season 4. And then how that concludes and sets up Daryl going back to America, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, there's actually a king here. They actually mentioned that there's a king. And so I don't know if this is a movement that is very small, or if it's very similar to Madame Genet, where she had a lot of power, right? So does this king have a lot of power already, or is this something that is just like starting, and we'll just kind of see where this goes? It does look like overall there's like 2 groups that are going to be potential villains, but the one group with like the armor and the weapons and all that, I think that they're actually going to be the main group or the main villains of the season, and we'll see where that goes at that point. But I think that, you know, that arc should get wrapped up in this season, I feel like, because I do think that they're really building up a lot of the final season, and Daryl and Carol obviously going back to America. We do see this shot here of Daryl, and he's looking at a walker, and so it's really interesting. So Gimple actually mentioned something that I found quite fascinating, and that was that there's actually going to be new walkers here, walkers that we haven't seen before. And so I don't know if it's going to be just like, you know, walkers that are like in the desert, and like, you know what I mean? If it's more just like visual effects and stuff like that. So for that, we'll have to wait and see. But I do think that new variants would be really cool, because I mean, this show obviously got into that a lot, and the fact that there's only going to be 4 seasons now, I'm like, I think, yeah, you could definitely get into something like that, right? So really amazing shot here of Daryl on his bike, and you see the sunset. I believe it's a sunset, or maybe the sun is rising. Just really amazing. Honestly, I don't know where this episode's taking place, if it's episode 3 or 4, but I just think that this episode is going to be very like visually pretty amazing. I think the action is going to be absolutely incredible. You do actually hear the mention of Barcelona, and so what's funny about that is, obviously Rick Grimes' brother, Jeffrey Grimes, was introduced in the comics, and his story takes place in Spain, and he actually goes to Barcelona. So it's kind of funny that they're doing this story right now, because Daryl is going to Spain, like he's going to Barcelona as well. And so it's like, I mean, I think that Jeffrey Grimes is likely not going to be introduced. I don't think the character is going to be there. I just think that it's a lot to get into, especially if the show is ending right away. I think that it just, again, I think it's a lot to get into to just explore that entire story there. So I think the story is Rick's brother is in Spain because his brother is Daryl, right? I think that makes the most sense there. And so it's cool that he's going to Barcelona. It's definitely an Easter egg to Rick Grimes' brother, but I think anything more than that, it's not really that. I think it's just an Easter egg to his brother in the comics. But we do see Daryl, and yeah, a really cool shot here. There's actually this whole sequence that happens on a train that I think is going to be a lot of fun. It looks like the action in this season is going to be a lot better than in previous seasons, because you see like a catapult, a lot of explosions and stuff like that. There's actually a train scene, and we've heard a lot about this, where like this train is going or whatever, and there's this whole thing happening. And so you actually see Daryl, I guess, in this battle with someone there. And there's walkers, I believe, pulling the train, so I'm not sure what that's all about, but obviously has to do with whatever, the group that they go and see. They're dealing with something, and so Daryl's helping them out in some way here. Maybe it's just supplies or it's something like that. But then we see who I believe is actually the king. Like, I don't know what his name is, but they referred to like this whole royal movement and that there is a king, and so I'm assuming that this is the king. I don't know what his actual name is, so I'm just going to refer to him as that for now, but it looks like he's actually going to talk to, I guess, the leader here of the community, and so I'm not sure what drama is happening at this point, but yeah, really intense scene. We see Daryl here with this mask. I'm not sure what this mask is, but yeah, pretty cool. And then we also see puppet walkers, I believe. I believe that these are actual walkers here, because Norman Reedus talked about that at Comic-Con. He mentioned that there's puppet walkers, and I was so confused by that until I saw this, and I was like, okay, so it's probably that. It's going to be a show, it's walkers, and they're all puppets, and so, I mean, it's going to be really cool to see, like, in season 2, there was, like, the Walker Band thing or whatever. I think that this is going to be very similar in that way, so yeah, really cool. And then we see Daryl here, and he's on his bike, and he's going up against, I guess, this other character here, and, I'm just excited for this season. I think that this is honestly going to be a really great season. It's going to be better than season 2, for sure. I think the excitement now for the fact that this is actually going to be ending after season 4 and that, now the characters can actually all reunite, like, that's the thing. There's actual excitement and a direction now, right? So we know where things are going. It's not just like, oh, this is going to get a season 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then maybe they announce a reunion thing, right? Like, now we know that this is ending at a certain point, and we know where this is going to overall go. So it's exciting because I do think the characters are going to reunite, but it's just like how, or like which characters, right? Like, is Rick going to be there? Is Michonne going to be there? It's just, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I thought this trailer was really great, though. I think that what they're doing for the story here is going to work really well, I think, with the characters. I think now people are very excited about just where this is going to go eventually, because again, the characters are eventually going to be back in America now, right? Like, we know it's not going to be 6, 7, 8 seasons where the characters are going to different places and everything. It's like this whole thing of Daryl and Carol being in Europe, it's coming to an end, and so by the end of season 4, they're likely going to be in America again. And so do they see Rick at the very end? That's the only thing that I'm having a hard time answering, because again, if you do that, you're ruining the reveal of Rick returning, right? And Rick and Daryl seeing each other. It would be a really good ending for the spin-off, but if they're doing something else afterwards, it kind of ruins that. So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. Like, I really do think that they might, like, he might see certain characters or whatever, but it might be one of those things where they're setting up something else here, but they end this whole story here of them being in Europe, and they actually will eventually make it back, which I think will be really cool. Honestly, to have Daryl back in America again will be really cool, and just to kind of see, how that works out in terms of the timelines of everything. But anyways, yeah, amazing trailer here, but definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.